block Gemara. Today is the Chavav Amar Aleph, the penultimate block of Chagigah and of the entire Seder Moyed. We are up to the Mishnah Chav Hei Beis in the bottom of the page, where we stopped. So let's begin. We're talking about that Amaratzim are believed when it comes to Hekdesh, and they tell us that they did everything 100%. They didn't put one vessel inside another vessel. They did everything followed correctly. By Kotchim, we accept it from them, not when it comes to Truma. Now, they had to sometimes relax the laws as well when it benefited the Chachamim. So, for example, inside Yerushalayim, we didn't want any manufacturing done. And they needed a lot of small little earthenware vessels because earthenware vessels cannot be kashed. And if you use it for the Beis Hamikdash and then it was left over in the morning, it's nicer. All you have to do is destroy it. So all of these little vessels that they had to go through quite a lot of them, and they needed quite a lot of vessels. So they invited the Amaratzim to come and bring the vessels to sell them if they told them it was Torah. But they wanted to make sure they put some strictures into place to make sure that they realize how serious it is and they'll follow the rules. So we made a rule that there's a 15-kilometer perimeter around Yerushalayim where we allow them to come and sell their little thin earthenware. When it comes to the large, vessels or earthenware, which they didn't have that, they didn't need that many. It was mainly used in the Beis Hamikdash or the Mishkan, but Beis Hamikdash. So then they decided that you have to actually bring these wares into Yerushalayim itself to sell them. So the Mishnah says, Min ha-maidim ulefnim. The perimeter started from Maidim area, which is 15 kilometers out of Yerushalayim. Now what? Then Amaratzim are believed on these earthenware that they want to sell to the Beis Hamikdash that it is Torah. But Min ha-maidim ulechutz, but beyond Maidim, ain't in their money. They're not believed. Even though it might be the same potterer, and he was there before and he's going home, once he's outside of these environments, he's no longer believed. So Hakador, the potter, Shehu Meicher Hagdedis, the one, and he is the one who is going to sell his own manufactured product. Nichnes lefnim and Hamedin, and then he comes inside within Medim. Who Hakador, he had to be the manufacturer. Vehein Hagdedis, and not only so the vendor had to be the manufacturer, but also he's only allowed to sell what he manufactured. You can't see once he set up shop, he could also buy from associates. No, it has to be only his potatoes. The hein haloichin, and the buyers are those who saw him come in with these vessels from outside of Medin. Then Naaman is believed. Yotza, once they left Medin, let's say they packed up their bags and they left Medin to go home, that's it. Ein Naaman is no longer believed. Says the Gemara. So what about Medin itself? It says within the environs of Medin and then beyond. What about Medin itself? Says Maidim, the village or the city of Maidim itself, Pa'amim Kilafnim, sometimes we consider it as if it's within the 15-kilometer line, and Pa'amim, sometimes we consider it outside the 15-kilometer line. How's that work? Ketzad. Kader, you'd say, if let's say the potter is leaving and the vendor is leaving, the chaver nichnes and the chaver is coming in, the Talmid Chacham is coming in. So the problem is that you're not going to if you don't buy it right now, you're going to miss your opportunity. Then we'll treat it till it's thing. Maidim itself will treat it like it's inside. You can still, your last opportunity, you can go ahead and buy it. Shneyem nechnasi, but if both of them are actually coming in, into to Median, or I just lost my voice. If both are coming in, so therefore, why buy Medin? Go a little bit further in, and then you'll buy it there. Chavavim and on the top of the page. Both the vendor and the buyer are both leaving. Now you had an opportunity to buy when he was set up. You didn't bother, and now that he's leaving, you want us to relax the laws. We're not going to, because Kilchus will treat it like it's outside Medin, and you cannot buy it from him. You cannot trust it. In fact, I'll bring it right to our very Mishnah we just learned. It says the Hakada. Hakador shemochar esagdedis, the kador, the potters who sells shemochar, he sells all of these vessels. V'nichnes, this pot. V'nichnes lifnim and hamadim. Oh, it says in the Mishnah he had to come in within the Medim. Sounds like only he had to go beyond Medim. into Yerushalayim. Not time Lefinim because they went beyond Ledim. How Medim go for Tzamtzum, the first part of the Mishnah, Medim itself, Leim is not believed. Aim Sefer, read the end of the Mishnah. Yotza Ein Neman, if he left Medim, he's not believed. Sounds like, but in Medim itself, How Medim go for Neman believed. How can you reconcile the Mishnah? Now, sometimes we say, for Zanai, you cannot bring a rai from Mishnah one way or another. But here we have a way to reconcile it. Sometimes it's considered as if it's inside within the perimeter, sometimes it's outside the perimeter, depending on the case. If the kadra is leaving the chavar just coming in, so you can't blame anybody for anybody, he's the last chance, we're going to be lenient. If you're both leaving, you had an opportunity before to buy, you didn't, and now you want to chaperein, we're not going to bend the rules for you. Are both coming in, then go a little bit further. Shema Minah is a clear proof. Tana, we learned this perimeter of 15 kilometers is only for small vessels which are used by the masses, because they went through so many because they kept on breaking them, after it was nice and everything else. So therefore, we accommodated them, and we made this rule that the Amarat can come, and within 50 kilometers on they can sell these wares. But if it comes to the large barrel, let's say for wine, and I believe you have to go to the Shleim itself. What's the definition of a small vessel? You can lift it with one hand. That's called a small vessel. But even if you need two hands, require two hands, it's still considered a small vessel compared to these barrels. Another argument says, only time we consider that these barrels is if they are empty, then you can trust that it's all right and bring it in. But if it's filled with a liquid or whatever, then you cannot bring it in. We trust them on the barrel. We made a special rule, but since you have liquid that we don't want, so therefore you cannot take it in. Rabbi Yochanan says, even if they are full, you can take them in. Even the full, you can take them in. Even though not only for the liquid we don't trust, but even if also, let's say we're talking about, when we say Malayan, we're talking about even if it's not kodesh, which means we're not going to trust that the contents in this barrel is tar, and yet the barrel itself we will trust that it is tar. Yechanan is a that the mashkin itself is not. Don't think Rabbi Yechanan means since we believe on the barrel, believe on the contents. No, Rabbi Yechanan says I agree with Shlachim. The contents are not to be trusted. We won't drink from that. It's not kodesh. We only believe for hegesh. The contents are not kodesh. We're not going to trust them. But the barrel itself, we will. Now, what's the logic in that?
Is this the shirish of the word? Is this the shirish of the word apikodesh?
Apikodesh.
It means something which is not kodesh here.
I know, but apikodesh generally is a Greek word, Epicurean.
But this is mamish the same Osius.
I know. I've never seen a relationship, but maybe.
Just wondering. That's all.
Could well be. I have never seen anyone put the two together. Rashi says we have a curse is that it's not holy. Others learn that the curse actually means like you put in a cloth or something in there, some clothes of the Amoritz. But the Altatame, you shouldn't be amazed. You have barrels that are full of liquid. And yet, loigin to me, remember we learned before, that you have upstairs and downstairs and you have a skylight in between and you filled it with a barrel of an Amoritz to try to block the tumah from going up. And we said the barrel of Amoritz, doesn't really block the tumah from going up. So we said that it will protect, let's say, anything we said before, anything which cannot go to the mikveh, which you cannot, so it's going to protect. So when it comes to food and drink upstairs, and it comes to earthenware barrels, we'll say it's tar. When it comes to other things like clothing or other things that you could put in the mikveh and retire, we say, you know what, it didn't protect it from that, and it is tamei. Or not halacha. How can the same barrel at the same time protect from certain things and other things? But don't be amazed because these are the halachas rachamim. Same thing over here. And the barrel itself, you can immerse in the mikveh is tamei, 7 days and all that. You have to go through the whole ritual, but the mashkin is tar. Says the Mishnah, Hagaboyin, if let's say over here Gaboyin are nothing special. Here Gaboyin were tax collectors basically. They worked for the king, and they come in to collect fines or whatever they come in to collect, and they would have a warranty. They're allowed to a warrant to go into your house and seize whatever it is that they can seize, and a mashkin, a security, until you pay your due debts. So the Gaboim went into your house. Likewise, a Ganovim. And who knows what they tampered with? And so too, Ganovim, Shechazidus came, stole things from your house, but they brought it back. Ne'emonim, they both trusted to say, Neganu, we did not touch anything other than the items that we took for security, so you don't have to check your house. Everything else is Torah. We haven't touched anything. You trust them. But we'll see why. Over Shalayim, Ne'emonim ala Kodesh. But in Yerushalayim itself, the Gemara what that means. They believe to say that everything is that not only when it comes to things which are Torah, they believe to say a kachim that is good, and even though Amaratzim not believe but Truma, they only believe when it comes to kachim, but when it comes to Yom Tov time, since af ala Truma, everyone is trusted when it comes to Yom Tov time that they are Torah. And therefore, if they say that this Truma we didn't touch, we will trust him. Right, so in the first part of the mission, when it says that we trust them, we're talking about as far as kachim is concerned. Remember, Amaratzim, I believe when it comes to kachim. So these Gaboim, these Galavim, I believe when it comes to kachim. But when they say, regarding Truma, we didn't touch, we don't trust Amaratzim when it comes to Truma. So this is a continuation of the previous mission that we learned. So the Gemara, when I ask a question, we learned elsewhere, if this tax collector or fine collector came into your house, we assume the entire house is tamei, because surely he touched everything. It's like kosher, not a problem. If he doesn't come out alone, comes with another guy, then he has to be seen as if he's trying to, find the best product and the most valuable items as security. Then he'll have to touch everything, and then the house is tummy. Our mission is talking about the lekah, he's on his own, and he's for the mensch. We assume that even though he's a yid and his job is to be he works in the sheriff's office, that he still is a mensch, and he's not going to go tamper everything. He'll take the first thing that he sees and take that and say to the government that's all he can find. Something to that effect. Did not be learned. If there's a guy with him, if a guy is with him, he's believed only I never went to that guy's house. He's not trusted to say, I went into the house, but I didn't touch anything. That we don't trust you at all. Trying to understand if a guy is with him, so what? Why should it be any different? One of them says, one of them says that he's scared of the guy because the guy will beat him up or give him a penalty if he doesn't do his job right. So therefore, he's going to touch everything. That's why the house is done. He's scared not so much the guy will directly hurt him, but he's scared the guy will report it to authorities and he'll get in trouble. Says the Gemara, at the end of the day, my benai, what's the difference in these two reasons? The fact is, if a guy is with him, you have to assume he touched everything in the house. And everything is tummy. No, what about a guy who's not strong, a guy that he's not scared of, he's not intimidated by? So if the problem is that he's worried about the guy who's with him, there's no problem. We'll assume that the house is tired if he says so. But if the problem is that the guy will report to the authorities, so who cares how weak the person is, he'll still can go and report to the authorities. Again, I know comes the Ganav Shef is a Kalim brought back to Kalim. When it returned to Kalim, you can trust him. The rest of the house is tired. But Aminu has a question. Haganov says elsewhere, Haganovim shenichnesu l'techabayis. If the Ganavim went to the house, it's not Tamei. Elam Mokum Drisas Ragla Ganav, only wherever they walked. But what do we see from here? That wherever he walked did become Tamei. And surely the Kalim itself that he stole and he brought back surely became Tamei. Yet our Mishnah says not only the house is tired, even the Keli that he returned, if he says to us that is tired, then it's tired. They believe to say that we never touched the inside of the Keli or something. What's going on here? I'm going to pinch it out. Kisha also tshuva. Our mission is different, right? Regularly, we don't just trusting an oven. We assume wherever he went, we'll look at his footsteps. Wherever he went, everything is tummy, and the kalim if he returned it is tummy. Here we're talking about the guy did tshuva. The guy did tshuva. He probably definitely wants to do the right thing. If that's the reason why he returned, not because he was compelled to by the police, but actually he did it came on his own. And therefore, we will trust him. They can approve you. Tani, it says, Shech Zidos, a kalim, Shmami, it says that he brought back the kalim. Well, the Ganavim, they brought back the kalim. That he did it on his own volition. Shmami on a voluntary basis, so we trust him. What do you mean, Shalayin Kodesh? Tell me, we learned. When it comes to large barrels, we don't believe from Maidin. When it comes not only regarding the barrels, it's only within the confines of Yerushalayim itself. And so the question is, why do we go to an extent to make these special rules that we don't normally trust when it comes to the barrels? And we made a rule about Medin for small pots and earthenware, and Yerushalayim for large ones. Why we do that? Because we do not build any of these furnaces in Yerushalayim. We don't manufacture any of these vessels in Yerushalayim, and therefore we made this special dispensation. So small vessels, which everybody needed, and there were so many of, therefore they decided to make it easier. And within 15-kilometer radius, you can go and buy all those things. But when it comes to the large ones, mainly the base of Mikdash, you needed it, and then a lot fewer made only Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, and we don't want the walls to get black with soot and all that, so we don't have any manufacturing plants in Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah Chagigah, when it comes to Yom Tov time, even on Truma, we trust Amaratzi. How do you know that we trust everyone when it comes to Yom Tov? There's a pasuk that says, "Vaye'osev kol ish Yisrael." They all gathered together. By Pelegish Begivat said they all gathered together in the city. Ki ish echad, like one person. Chavedim. Like when everyone gathers together, we treat them all like Tamid Chachamim. And since Yom Tov is a time when everybody gathers together, therefore you treat everyone like as if they are Chavedim, they are Tamid Chachamim. So Yom Tov is different. So now we're going to continue on this theme of Yom Tov being different. How far do we go? I mean, even Amaratzim on Yom Tov are to be trusted for Truma, that everything is Torah. The question is, what happens after Yom Tov with the same product? Mishnah. If somebody opens up his barrel, let's say Talmid Chacham opened his barrel to sell wine in Yerushalayim. Everybody usually goes to sell wine tasting, they touch it. But on Yom Tov it doesn't matter because Amaratzim are considered Torah. Or Hamaschil Be'isa, so let's say he started making dough and everything else, and on Yom Tov people come and look at it and touch it maybe, and see how it looks. And now what happens after Yom Tov? So it says over here, Al Gabaregel, and you started on Yom Tov and people touched it, but we assume everyone's Torah. Rabbi Yehuda says, Yigmar, Rabbi Yehuda says you can continue after Yom Tov, since during Yom Tov, whatever the Amaratzim touches Torah, so you can continue selling it after Yom Tov because we are assuming it's Torah. However, Chachamim say a very interesting law. Lo Yigmar, after Yom Tov, the same barrel of wine, half of it has been emptied during Yom Tov, people touched it, everything else of wine tasting. So during Yom Tov, everyone could drink from that wine because they're tired. But the moment Yom Tov is over, that whatever the left over in that barrel, we retrospectively will say, oh, those Amaratzim touched it during Chalamayid, they were tamei. That takana is no longer there. Therefore, we are going to say that the rest of the contents of the barrel are tamei. Very interesting law. So during Yom Tov is considered Torah, but the moment after Yom Tov, it's not from now on. We're going to say retrospectively, the Maratzin that touched it during Chalamayid were tamei, and therefore it's us. It's like a special takana we made that overrides the fact that it is tamei, but because the whole thing is a chumrah rabban anyway. So therefore we're going to make that. But Maratzin will say that Torah. Of course, we can't trust the Maratzin. But Rabbi Yehuda says yes. Once it became what do you call it? Rabbi Yehuda says very simply. Rabbi Yehuda says the logic is if you are going to tell the Tamid Chachamim will open the barrels, but whatever you have left over after Yom Tov is considered Tamid, then they say, well, you know what? I'm not going to open the barrel at all. Why would I want to invite Amaratzim in here to buy things? I'm not going to sell Yom Tov. I'm going to close my shop during the whole Yom Tov. What do I need it for? So Rabbi Yehuda is worried about that. So therefore he says, you know what? We're going to tell them that whatever you open on Yom Tov, whatever Amaratzim touches, not only some rider that we're going to say we're going to ignore it. We're going to say that during Yom Tov they're actually Torah. So it doesn't matter. After Yom Tov, as long as you make sure after Yom Tov nobody touches it unless they're a chaver, go ahead and sell. Says he asked the question, let's say the leftovers in the barrel, can you then, don't sell it after Yom Tov because you have this issue here. You know what? Put it in reserve and save it for the next Yom Tov because during Yom Tov everything is all right. Can you do that? I don't understand. All these Amaratzim went ahead and they touched it. And you're going to say leave it to another Yom Tov? Once it's already tamei, it's tamei. I don't understand your logic. You're telling me that all Amaratzim touch it, so it comes like Yom Tov, it's tamei. So how about this Yom Tov? The Amaratzim touched it, and yet we say it's no problem. Either Yad Hakom and Mashibah during Yom Tov, during Chalamayid, everybody touched it. And it's not a problem. And you can tell me that we should leave it to another Yom Tov. What's the problem? Until now, everybody was touching it. No, the first guy said, everyone touched a haki leaf for the next Yom Tov. So you guys said back, when you go haki leaf next Yom Tov? And this Yom Tov itself, everyone was touching it during the whole Yom Tov, and it didn't concern us. We said it's all right. So why can't you leave for the next Yom Tov maybe and be all right again? Amalei said to him, what are you comparing? During Yom Tov, there's a special pasuk that says that everything on Yom Tov is Torah. We learn from the Yom Tov is Torah. But now, once Yom Tov is over, it's a chalois of tumah. In other words, when they opened the barrel of chalamayit, it wasn't tumah yet. Amaratsim touched the Yom Tov. The Torah said whatever happens on Yom Tov is Torah. Everybody's Torah. Okay, but now that it's after Yom Tov, it became tamei, this very barrel, because of what the Amaratsim touched before. So therefore, because it became this chumrah d'rabbanan, because it became tamei, how do you want to use it for next Yom Tov? And say now the tamei became Torah? That we don't say. So what are you asking? Says Gemara, you know what? Maybe name a ketanai. In fact, why can't we say this is an argument of two braysos of two tanaim? So the Gemara, the Chanichad, in one place we learn actually says leave it for the following Yom Tov. But Tanya learned another place, don't leave it next Yom Tov. What's the argument? My love, Tanoi. So you see clearly, one said you could leave it next Yom Tov, so you can't. Say, well, no. That's not new Tanaim. It's exactly the machlekes of our Mishnah. Maybe the one that says leave it for the next Yom Tov, Rabbi Yehuda says that the leftover wine is tar, so you can leave it for next Yom Tov if you want to sell it, because it never became tamei. And the opinion that says you cannot leave it for next Yom Tov sell it on seller, because that's Rabbana. They say once Yom Tov is over, it became tamei, and once you classify it tamei, that's it. Fafal. Says Gemara, but does that make sense to you? That he says leave the next Yom Tov? Why would Rabbi Yehuda recommend you to leave the next Yom Tov? Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah you could continue selling this very same barrel the day following Yom Tov, as long as from now on make sure Amaratim don't touch it, because once this barrel became tired during Yom Tov, it remains tired. So why in the world would you leave it till next Yom Tov? Continue selling right away. Ella, in fact, the opposite. The one who says don't leave it for next Yom Tov is Rabbi Yehuda, and he didn't mean don't leave it. He means you don't have to leave it. You can continue selling right after Yom Tov. The other view that says wait till the following Yom Tov and then sell it then, it must be the Rabbanan, because Rabbanan hold after Yom Tov you cannot sell it, because we're going to say that it's tamei. But as soon as next Yom Tov comes along, if you don't sell it in between, so no Amaratzim touch it, next Yom Tov along, whatever happened, however we classified the previous Yom Tov, we'll classify this Yom Tov. Whatever Amaratzim touched during Yom Tov is not tamei during Yom Tov. So therefore you can continue selling it. And Rabbi Yehuda, when he says don't leave it, doesn't mean you're not allowed to. Of course you're allowed to. My lo yinechena, what Rabbi Yehuda meant was there's no point. You can continue selling it after Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah further. So now that we're telling you an interesting halacha. On the one hand, during Yom Tov, we say we treat all the Amaratzim as if they're Torah, but as soon as Yom Tov is over, we say retrospectively whatever they did is actually tamei, according to the Rabbanan. So we go further. So now everything they touch in the base of Mikdash, we have to put in the mikveh. Amazing thing. Even though during Yom Tov we let them touch whatever it is, but as soon as Yom Tov is over, we got to be betayah the whole base of Mikdash. Imagine that spectacle. The Maratzim were there, were told that they're Hans and Torah, and then right after the thing, they watched how everybody's there. Oh, you got to put this in the mikveh, put it in the mikveh. The Maratzim touched it. Just an interesting scenario. Mishnah. Misha over hadegel. Once Yom Tov is over, ma'avidin. Now they have to go. Al tadas azora. Now they have to go and be metayah the entire courtyard. They have to metayah everything. So what they do is they take all the kalim and they put them in, the mikveh, and they have to cleanse out the entire courtyard from the tomb of the Amoritz. They touch it on Yom Tov. So in other words, when the Torah said that they are Torah on Yom Tov, it's not because really we trust 100% they are Torah. It's just the Torah says we want everyone to be treated equally, so everyone should be considered Torah. Not that they are, they're considered Torah. So as soon as therefore during Yom Tov we're not makpid it over. As soon as Yom Tov is over, wherever they went, you have to be is tamei lim mafrei, and you have to metayah it again. This is how the Chacham learn, not like Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara. So said Mishnah. But the day following, let's say the last day is Yom Tov Thursday, so Friday is the day afterwards. Who has time on Friday to go and cleanse everything in the base of Mikdash? They wouldn't yet. They wait till Sunday. If they covered her Shabbos, everyone else has to be home and help out for Shabbos. And clear that all the men were there helping out for Shabbos, getting the house ready. Rabbi Yehuda says, He says, even if Yom Tov fell out on Wednesday, so now you have Thursday and Friday. Friday doesn't count because you're busy with Shabbos, but Thursday also doesn't count. You know why? Because she'ein hakoyin in pnim. They have no time on Thursday, as the Gemara will explain, because they're busy taking out all the ashes accumulated over the 7 days of Yom Tov, all the kabbanas that were brought with so many ashes, they have to clean that out. So that's the first thing before you get the whole place wet and everything else. Gemara Tanash and Kohen Pnuim Lahaitzik take out all the ashes. Says the Mishnah, says the Mishnah, how do you take out? How do you do the madbiliness? Like, what do you mean? You say you have to matai the whole base of mikvah. What do they do? Madbiliness like kalim shahayu midyan. Took all the kalim out the table. The said them, you got to be careful. They would tell the Amaratzim during Yom Tov that certain things they shouldn't touch because we cannot put them in the mikvah. Anything that we could put immersed in the mikvah after Yom Tov, no problem. They can touch whatever they want. But one thing that they cannot take out, they would tell them, please don't touch. What is that? The shulchan would have to go to the mikveh, but do not touch the shulchan because we cannot take it to the mikveh. It becomes tameh, and we cannot take it to the mikveh because it says that the shulchan should be tamid. It says there that lechem panim lefanai tamid has to constantly be lefanai in the base of mikveh, so we cannot physically take a table out and immerse it in the mikveh because it has to be before the Eibishter all the time. Kol hakelim shoy mikdash. Every keli that was in the base of Mikdash, Yeshlem, Shneim, Shlishim, they always build a replica, second or a third, in case it becomes Tameh, if something came Tameh, they always have a replacement. Argument whether they did the same thing about Shulchan or not.
So can I ask, how could the Shulchan become Tameh? An Amor, it's not going to walk in and touch the...
Very good question. So there's two opinions. One opinion is, in fact, we can learn it inside. Look at the top places on the page. Like Tiga B'Shulchan says Taisus, B'Koyanim Amiaretz. You have a
Rashi brings that pshat also.
Sorry,
Rashi has that pshat on the end of the last page, on the bottom of.
I know. Taisus says that he's quoting Rashi here.
Yeah.
What do you call it? It's talking about Koyanim Amiaretz because the Yisraelim would not be able to go there. You're not allowed to go beyond the Mizbech. However, others learn is talking about people Amaratzim because they would pick up, we'll soon see, they used to pick up the shulchan and they would say, look, Ruchi Baschem Lifnei, look how Eibishter loves you. And there's an argument, how far did they take the shulchan when they lifted it for everybody to see? Did they just leave it in the heichel still? So then it could only be Kohen Amaratzim, or did they actually take it out? And this is part of the covenant of Hashem, so that you're allowed to take it outside. If they took it outside, then anybody could have touched it. So there's an argument in the Shayim there. So I'm going to further back to the Mishnah. Good question. I'm going to Mishnah. All the Kalim Mikdash require tefillah. Chutz mizbech hazor be'achosh. The problem of shulchan we just spoke about. The shulchan does need tefillah. The problem is that we can't. But all the Kalim chutz the mizbech, the golden, the inner one and the outer one, because they're considered like permanent structure of the ground, and something which is attached to the ground doesn't require tefillah. Can't get tummy. They're in the ground, and it has the things that are portable or mobile that they go to mikveh. The Chachamim say because it's covered with gold. Now, are the Chachamim arguing Rabbi Lezer or just giving another reason? We'll see in the Gemara. Says the Gemara further, we learned, to be careful. Shem Batigu, in another brayz it says, be careful, don't touch the shulchan and don't touch the menorah either. Our mission doesn't mention the word the menorah. The Tana did done my time Tani menorah. Why doesn't our Mishnah also mention that they warned these Kohanim and Atzim don't touch the menorah? But when it says shulchan, see by shulchan it says tummy. By shulchan it says it should always be before Hashem. Therefore, you cannot remove it to take it to mikveh. Menorah like kasibah tamid. Nowhere does it menorah has the word tamid, and therefore it's even though it says by the lighting it should be tamid. It doesn't say by the menorah itself that it should be there tamid, and therefore you can take it out for a few minutes. The first brayz, the brayz here, the first one that says the menorah shouldn't touch either. Kivun nechsiv, because there's another pasuk. Where you should place the shulchan, and it says the menorah should be placed right opposite the shulchan on the side of the mishkan. It says the menorah shulchan is as kimani kasibot tamid. That means they're reading it. The menorah should be treated just like the shulchan, which means it should always remain there and shouldn't move. Vidach and our Mishnah, it's only coming to tell you where in the Mishkan you should, or the base of Mikdash you should place the menorah, but not that it has to be identical to menorah to the shulchan that's always there. Says the Gemara, why don't we just say that even there's another reason perhaps why it doesn't become tamei. Why? You're saying that the shulchan comes tamei and therefore we tell people not to touch it. It shouldn't become tamei at all. Why not? because it says kli eitz, a wooden keli. Since the pasuk over there, we'll see them in the pasuk when it talks about tumah, it compares it to a sack and all that. Any keli which is permanent doesn't move around, doesn't get moved around, does not makabel tumah. So the question is, when it comes to metal, it doesn't matter whether it's permanent, it's sitting there all the time, you don't move it around. But when it comes to wood, because of the pasuk it says sack, and so on. So sack, we say, has to be similar to a sack that has to be moved around and so on. The kol kli eitz also something which is there sort of permanently. You don't move it, not because you can't, just don't do it. It's not becoming tummy. So what's the problem with the shulchan? And my time, what's the reason? Dumya the sack bein. Regarding tumah, we compare wood to a sack. It says that so the mikol kli eitz oy beged oy sack. So we compare all these four things to each other. Dumya the sack bein, and something makabel tumah. When it comes to wood, it has to be similar to a sack. Ma sack metalpul moleverekum. It's even when it's full, it's not that big, and you can move it around. Afkol metalpul moleverekum. Anything which gets moved around, whether it's full or empty. So we learn from there a very large keli, 40 saw greater does not make makabel tumah, wooden keli, and metal kelim are different, and because it's not mentioned in the pasuk, it also doesn't have these limitations, and also that it has to, if it's something that generally you don't move around, also it's not makabel tumah. So one answers no. The reason the shulchan is makabel tumah because it does get moved around. What do you mean? Once it gets moved around, you just said before, you leave it there always. We also move it around. Like the Shlaki said, Shlaki said, it says a pasuk al hashulchan hatoy. You should place the loaves of bread on the Torah table. Meklaush, it says on the table hatoy. That is as if to say right now it's Torah. In other words, there's a possibility that it shouldn't be Torah. Meklaush who tummy. There's a raya that the table could become tummy sometime. Now the question is, how can it become tummy if it's a permanent fixture? How can it become tummy? Isn't that a wooden keli, the table that's meant to be there always? And Malama going to teach you, they used to lift this table. Every Yom Tov they would take the shulchan, lift it and make it and show it to everybody. Lechem hapanim, this is lechem hapanim. But oimlem, you tell them, look how much Hashem loves you. See, Lukai kisiduroi. That a week later, when you put it on, it's piping hot, and a week later you take it off, remove it, it is just as hot and just as fresh. Nes godel nasa belechem hapanim. It's a great miracle that occurred lechem hapanim. Kisidura, the way you organize it. That's how you removed it. It says in pasuk when you placed it that losum lechem chaim, that they would place hot bread. B'yom hilacha, they take it the day they took it off from it. So therefore we see that what? That there was a nest, they used to lift it. So therefore it was mobile. They moved it around 3 times a year. That's enough to say it's no longer kliyeta osu nachas. I used to hear, I heard from Rav once that why would David should show this every Yom Tov in this particular nest? There were other nisim, there was the fire came down in the form of a lion. What you're telling people is about your relationships, just like you and the Eibishter, that it always has to be fresh and warm. Same thing, relationships at home, that even a week later, a year later, 10 years later, it should be as fresh and as warm as it was when it all started. So anyway, so the Gemara says right now that the shulchan is mekabel tumah, because it does get moved around, and therefore we warned Amaratz, please don't touch it, because the shulchan we had to leave in the Kodesh all the time. We couldn't take it to the mikveh, so please don't touch it. The Menorah, on the other hand, according to Al Mishnah, the Menorah you could take it in the immersion mikveh, so it didn't matter if they touched it. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll